The biggest problem I find is that the business owner feels like they need to solve everything.
Let me get this perfect first before I document it. I think that was really what was holding me back.
How do you get a business owner out of the day-to-day operations and to step back from that?
But still, it sounds scary because the word systemization sounds big and it's kind of like a big commitment.
Just understanding the importance of systems. I feel like it's probably one of the least addressed parts of business, yet one of the most fundamental and foundational.
Hi, welcome to GrowthGarden. Today, I'm really excited to welcome David Jenyns. He's an expert in business systemization, and David is the founder of Systemology, where he helps business owners to free themselves from daily operations through streamlined systems. So he actually successfully fired himself from his own business, hired a CEO, and went on to triple his bottom line. So today we're going to find out more about his journey and his experience on how to build systems that scale. So David, welcome. Thanks for making time to join us.
Pleasure.
David, it sounds like a dream to have a business that runs itself, but we all know that it's not so easy. What was it like before you made the transition? And was there like a turning point where you kind of managed to achieve your freedom? What do you have to do?
The turning point for me was when we found out that we were pregnant, and I was working really long hours, and I thought, I don't want to be that dad that's always too busy, because I was working 60, 70-hour weeks, doing weekends and evenings and mornings, and I thought, I've got to change this. And I have seen other businesses that have successfully systemized, and the business has managed to grow beyond the founder and continue to grow and scale. So I knew it was possible. And I just thought, right, well, I've got a bit of a deadline here, something to work towards and something to really drive me. And I've channeled all of my focus in on it. Like, it's definitely a journey with business. And at each stage, you're always solving different problems and nothing's ever exactly right or perfect. So even though I say that's the turning point, it's still a journey and you're always improving things as you go.
So that was the motivation to get started. In terms of when you started to take the steps, how did you figure out what to do and how did you know you were on the right track?
I have a lot of conversations with business owners and we always agree that systems-driven businesses are better. They deliver better outcomes for clients, better outcomes for the team, for the business owner, for the bottom line, for suppliers. Like, a systems-driven business just runs more efficiently, so it gets a better result. So I kind of already intuitively knew that systems was a real key part. And like many people, I've read the classics, Traction and Built to Sell and The E-Myth and Scaling Up. All of those books talked about systems. So again, I knew systems is just about capturing what's currently working and making it repeatable. But it's easy as a business owner to get caught up in the day-to-day and not make time to do that. It's strange. I don't know exactly where it came from, but I intuitively knew that that's where I needed to focus my energy. When we had the turning point as finding out we were pregnant and thought, right, well, I need to remove myself from the day-to-day operations because I'm going to have some time off. And unless the business was able to make money without me being present and being involved in different things were going to grind to a halt because I was going to be forced to be taken out of the business. So then I thought, well, I need to go to work on the systems and on the business itself. And I just started identifying what are the key areas that were critical, which bits were I involved in. And I had some really great team members as well to kind of support me through that process. I think probably one of the big lessons I had was one of our sister companies was a video production business, and I'm not a video guy. So I didn't know how to do the technical work. Like, I'm not a camera person. I didn't know how to do the editing. And we built that business where I wasn't the technician, like I wasn't getting pulled into the day-to-day just simply because I didn't know how, which then meant I had to work on it and approach it more like a business owner and separate. So I took some of the learnings of what happened in that company, that little sister company, and then I applied it to my main business. And it's strange because I feel like a lot of business owners, it's a blessing and a curse. Like, business owners will start their business because they know how to do the technical work and they're great at oftentimes delivering the product or the service. And that helps them to get it off the ground. It helps them to get a vision for what it is that they're building. But it's also that vision that ends up trapping them. It's too easy for them to slip back into, I'll just do it myself. or whenever there's a problem, the team comes to me. Or if there's a client that needs some help and they ask for me, well, they've got direct line of access to me. It's all of these bad habits. It helps the business owner get the business off the ground, but then oftentimes it's also what stops them from scaling.
Wow, okay. I would love to come back to the steps and some of the processes involved in getting to where you are. But just to pick up on that point there, so as a business owner myself, I know that logically I should systemize my business, but when it comes to day-to-day work, it's really hard to keep that momentum going. Yeah. Things crop up and sometimes you let someone do it and things just get messed up. So what are some of the most common fears and obstacles that you see amongst the teams that you have worked with, right? And what's your advice for people like myself who want to systemize a business but find ourselves not able to?
Firstly, it's very common. And most business owners have some of these challenges because systems, they're always important, but they're not urgent. Because the busy business owner has 100 things to do, they're always focusing in on important and urgent, and they never find the time to get down to actually creating the systems when, not to mention, the business owner oftentimes isn't a systems person. Like, they might appreciate the value of the systems, but they're not the person who should be doing the documentation or enjoy doing the documentation. Yet for some reason, a lot of business owners think, well, if we're creating systems, it has to be them. But that's also the problem that got them into where they are right now, thinking everything has to be them. They're like, oh, but I want the system to be just right. And I need to be involved in documenting it to get it to its certain standards. So of course it has to be me. And it's that trap of the thinking that gets them there. When oftentimes the first step and how you kind of break out is not looking to create world-class systems, not looking to create the way that you would like it to be, not making it perfect right from version number one, but rather saying, how do we look at what's already working? Who's already doing the task well? How do we make that repeatable and just make that version number one? Like, tremendous wins can be gained inside the organization just by making things that are already working repeatable and then removing the dependency on certain key team members. There is a challenge here. I mean, one of the things I learned the insight was actually I did some work with Michael Gerber. And I would have thought he's the author of the E-Myth. Everybody sees him as the godfather of business systems, yet he doesn't document process. He's not what you would maybe traditionally think, oh, he's a systems guy, so he's going to enjoy doing this. He's actually very creative, and he's recognized the importance of systems, and he's recognized that he's not going to be the one that documents it or handles that side of things. So he surrounds himself in all of the team members who can fill the gaps. So he recruits very strong systems-minded people who do the documentation and things because it's not him. And that's what made me realize oftentimes the business owner keeps on thinking it has to be them. You know, if I look back at everything that I've learned over the last few years, the biggest turning point, the biggest piece of advice, if someone could take something away from our call right now, would be you need to have someone on your team whose role it is to be what we call the systems champion. It's someone whose responsibility it is, who has a little bit of capacity, who is naturally organized, who likes writing process, who does this automatically, and you make this part of their role. You can guide them through, and it's your job as the business owner. You've got to lead this. You've got to tell the team that this is important. You've got to put time, money, and energy behind it, and you've got to let everybody know that this is not a optional thing. This is the direction that the organization's moving forward, and you give full support to the systems champion who's going to keep it moving day in and day out. That's the job of the business owner, and it's the systems champion's job to meet with the team members and capture what they're doing and record it and save it in a central location and link back to the project management platform so there's clear responsibility. There's a range of different things that need to happen there, but I think long answer to a short question, oftentimes it's just in the business owner's head. That is the biggest bottleneck and the biggest challenge is for some reason business owners just feel like it needs to be them.
Okay, that's very useful. Thanks. Just want to come back to some of the components you were talking about. So, for example, you mentioned systems champion, having a database. So could you just maybe walk us very quickly through what are the steps that we should expect in going through the systemization process for beginners as starters?
Yeah. The first thing the business owner really needs to decide and then say, this is what we're doing, because there will be resistance. There are going to be challenges. Team is going to push back. Some people are going to hop on board and some people aren't. So the commitment needs to be that, yes, we're going to stick with this long enough to get the result. Because if you start it and you do it for 3 months and then you think, oh, I'm not getting the result I thought, and then you abandon it, it actually does more harm than good, because you send the message to the team that, oh, yes, we tried to systemize and that didn't work for us. But the reality is systems is just, it can't not work, because all we're saying is capture what's working and say, this is how we do it here. Now, there's going to have to be nuance and accountability and transparency and a lot of other things to really make it work. But systems is just about capturing what's working. So it's understanding that, deciding this is what we're going to do. And then the next question is, okay, well, where do we start? Out of the hundreds of things that you could document, you have to understand just because you don't document something doesn't mean it's going to magically stop happening. Your business is already kind of working. You may have some good team members. You're strong at what you do. And great team members will actually fill in the gaps where a system might not cover everything. With that, we apply the 80-20 and we think, okay, well, what are the most important systems in the business? And let's go to work on those first, because we just have to get started and we have to start somewhere. So we look at the Pareto principle. What are the 20% of the systems that deliver 80% of the result? Now, for most businesses, we generally say, what is the primary product or service? And we systemize that. And it's the entire life cycle of how do we grab your target audience's attention? How do we convert those into paying clients and handle an incoming inquiry and then sell them? How do we then onboard them into your business? How do we deliver the core product or service? And then how do we get them to come back? Generally, that's where we start. There can be other things in other departments, but if you focus on how the business makes money and how to make that happen without key person dependency, that oftentimes is a big win for the business. You can even go a step beyond that and say, where inside what we call the critical client flow, that's what that area of the business is that we're looking at, where is the pain? And you might go, I don't have enough leads, or we've got too many leads and we have trouble onboarding the clients and getting them started and doing the work. Okay, well, then you go to work there. So you think where within that critical client flow is the pain, and that becomes a great starting point. Because the whole idea is we go, this is painful. Okay, well, how does it currently work? Who currently does it the best? What are we currently doing? Let's make that the baseline, capture that, bring everybody up to that standard. And then later on, we can think about optimizing and improving and going from there. But first, let's just make it repeatable, because most small business just struggles with repeatability. They're so key person dependent and reliant on someone. Like, clients crave consistency. They don't even need the best. McDonald's has very average hamburgers, but the reason everybody goes back is because of the consistency. People know if I'm going to order a hamburger, a Big Mac in Singapore, or they're going to order it in Melbourne, or they're going to order it in New York, the Big Mac's going to taste the same, because that's what clients want. They want to know what it is that they're going to buy consistently.
Thank you. So just want to make sure I understand some of the really big ideas here. So as a business owner, the fact that I have a business that's already in operation, something must be working, right? So we want to focus on those things that actually work. And if I apply the 80-20 rule, we want to zoom in on the biggest pain points or the biggest opportunities, right? And just get someone to help us. We don't have to do everything ourselves, make it consistent. And once we get that baseline, we can talk about, all right, what's next? And we just keep moving forward. Right?
Yes. So you think about McDonald's. McDonald's has been systemizing for over 60 years now. So you don't actually ever get to done with systemization. It's not like you systemize and you go, oh, great, we're done. We've created systems. We can now move on. It becomes a way of business and a way of doing things. And it's just about figuring out what works, making it repeatable, and then delegate. Oftentimes you're delegating it down to lower skilled or less cost team members, or even robots, automation, to free up your highest skilled team members to work on the highest value tasks. Typically, those tasks are the tasks that don't yet have a system or a process. You want your best people working on the things that aren't systemized. so that they can figure out the way and systemize it so it can be delegated down.
Okay, so what if it's something that we are not doing right yet? When do we start dealing with those gaps, or do we start with capturing what's already existent? What do you think is the best?
Generally, the biggest problem I find is that the business owner feels like they need to solve everything. And if we get into the point of re-engineering or this isn't working and let's create a new system, that will suck some of the time of your best team members, the business owner or the most skilled. Now, oftentimes in the early days, they're the people with the least amount of space because they're working on the important and the urgent. So there's no space to think about optimizing and improving and looking for the best. So generally speaking, exceptions to the rule, but 9 times out of 10, I say your best off tremendous wins can be made by just making what's already working repeatable. That then frees up the space. Like if someone's focused on that for 6 to 12 months in their business and captured all of those ideas, that then frees them up. And then it makes it much easier to then work on where the gaps are. Sometimes there are exceptions to the rule and there is a very obvious gaping hole, but it's too easy for the business owner to then think that they're the person that should solve this and that they step in. So almost initially, I just want to break bad habits. And they're not even bad habits because, they helped you get to where you were, so they were helpful, but now they're the habits that hold you back. So it's step 1 is we just got to get out of some of the bad habits.
Okay, that's really useful because I sometimes get stuck trying to perfect things when I've got things that are already working that I'm probably not systemizing and making it more consistent. That's really great advice. So it probably took you many years to get to where you are now. And if you were to look back, what were some of the biggest pitfalls or lessons that you have learned? So if you were to do it again, you would have done differently. Yeah. So although we have your system to follow just in case, with most of us.
Yeah. This is still a work in progress for my existing business. Every business is at a different life cycle, like stage in the life cycle. In the early days when Systemology was getting off the ground, I was very much working in it, not so much on it. I was figuring it out and kind of getting it going. Then over time, we kind of start to build the team and I'm able to step out of the operations. And then there are certain things that I'm still involved in. So I'm kind of stepping in it and out of it as the team has grown, more ability to kind of work on it rather than getting pulled as much in, or I can decide when I want to hop in and out. I think that's the first big thing. The business owner needs to get to the point where they can choose. Most business owners don't have the choice. They started a business thinking, I'm starting a business because I want freedom and I want to be my own boss and I want to control things. But then oftentimes 6 months, 12 months into it, they go, I've got anything but freedom because now the business is so dependent on me that's causing challenges. So the first step is actually to be able to get to the point where you have the choice, because it's okay to work in it. And sometimes I'll work in it and work on something and then I'll step out. But it's the stepping in and out that's really key for you to be effective and think about how you're allocating your time. So if someone's listening to this, the challenges and things you need to overcome will depend on what stage you are in the business, because early days you might be in it. But if like the key lessons I have learned to overcome, one was that idea of the systems champion. That was my biggest one, because that means even when you're in it or your time is getting pulled in 100 different ways, you're still moving forward to building a systems culture, which is critical. You need to take a lot of baby steps over a very long period of time, and you have to get over the hump until the culture starts to change. And you need to stick with it till you get the reward. And it's almost like an exponential curve. You don't notice the benefits straight away. One system here, 2 systems there, saving you a little bit of time. It doesn't feel like much. It's only until you go much further into the future and you're stacking the benefit of lots of systems that you really then start to go, ooh, this was a game changer, but you don't notice it in the moment. So that's also what makes it sometimes hard for business owners to stick with this. Pitfalls is like sometimes even just believing some of the traditional information around systemization. Like for me, it's all about thinking, is this helping the business and moving it forward, and what just intuitively makes sense? Like, for example, if I have a very highly skilled team member doing a particular task and maybe they've been with me for a very long time, if I were to recruit and replace them, I'm also probably going to need to hire a highly skilled team member. Well, I don't need to to over-engineer this system and document it down to minute, painful detail where it's left click here, then click open, then click this. Like that, you're going way too far for what the role needs. You need to be intelligent and say, well, maybe I just need a high-level checklist here that explains the key steps. And that means for a smart team member, that'll give them the framework that they need. There's oftentimes not an exact hard and fast rule of it has to be done this way. You have to intelligently go, you know what, maybe we don't need to systemize that thing. Or maybe we need more detail here, or we don't need more detail there. And some of that stuff you only learn as you go, and you just need to be seeking out efficiency. The reason we're doing this is to improve better outcomes for the clients and the staff and things like that. So that's why I'm always just about, you just got to get on the journey and stay on the path, because a lot of those learnings you only pick up while going through it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. So I was just relating to some of the points that you said. So when I started out, it was just me, a solopreneur. And I think gradually what happened was I realized I was doing some stuff repeatedly and I started to just document them. I read your book by then and I was documenting them. And once I had a chunk of it, I hired someone to come and kind of take over part of the job. I was fortunate because the first few people were quite organized. So they started to document their process. But after a while, it got really messy because different people were documenting it differently. And recently I had someone who, she's probably as close to a systems champion as you mentioned. She loves documentation and she loves very practical aspects of capturing stuff. So she has helped me to kind of like look at stuff across the board to say, okay, where are some of the opportunities that we can organize things a little bit better and just streamline what we already have. So I can get what you're saying, that it's really a process. But still, it sounds scary because the word systemization sounds big and it's kind of like a big commitment. So for business owners who, they are not really decided yet, they want to do it, but they're kind of like sitting on the fence. What are some of the baby steps that they could take just to, get a bit warm? Toast in the water?
Definitely reading some of the different books out there. Systemology is one, but there's a lot of great books. I mentioned a few earlier, like E-Myth and Traction, Scaling Up. A lot of these books help to build the case and help you to understand why. I mean, that's the first thing. You need to decide that this is the way to build a business. And depending on what business you are looking to build, I could probably make the case that systems will help you get there quicker, regardless of what it is that you're looking at doing. If you want to have a business where you have the freedom to choose to work in it, out of it, on it, whatever, systems is going to get you there. If you're looking to sell the business, systems will add more value to exit. Regardless of what the individual is looking at doing, systems will help you get there. So if you know that and you realize that you're not a systems person, then just like you had mentioned, Angela, if maybe the first couple you were lucky you recruited and you got some systems driven people, definitely building in to your recruitment process ways to determine upfront if people coming on board are systems driven people, if they can follow process. You might even share some of the SOPs that team member will be working on as part of their role, as part of the recruitment process. So that way up front, you can say, hey, you're going to be doing things like this. And then if someone doesn't fit with that, it's much easier to opt them out early before they're in the organization. And that is especially important if the business owner doesn't see themselves as very strong with systems. Like that means if you're not strong with systems, then you better make sure that every other team member can help basically be strong where you are weak, because we need the systems and the processes. So I would start off with, depending on the size of the team, identifying that systems champion on the team who might take some of this responsibility, then identifying a handful of core systems that you'd like to get started on. Maybe they're pain points, or maybe there's something that's just taking up your time and it just feels like an administrative task that could be delegated down to a team member. Probably one of the best things you can do is just, in my opinion, get comfortable screen recording things. As in, a business owner should get comfortable with Loom and Zoom and be able to record themselves doing a task and build a catalog. And you don't even have to go out of your way, like think, oh, I've got to sit down and create these videos on how I do these things. Just literally record yourself doing it next time you do it. Like just do it in the moment and talk over the top of it. For some people, there's a little bit of a hurdle to overcome with that. So you just need to get comfortable with recording videos, because there is nothing easier than you recording yourself doing a task, passing it over to a systems champion, that systems champion getting it transcribed, feeding it into ChatGPT, asking ChatGPT to draft the version of the process, and then organizing that drafted process along with the video in a central location. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you systemize your business? One system at a time. Some of these things as well, like I talk about, it's never been more important because of the changes with AI. So artificial intelligence needs to be told what to do. The SOPs that you document today will become the programming of the machines tomorrow. So it's very important to figure out what are your core tasks, what are things that are going on inside your business that needs to be done, how is it to be done, what is the appropriate standard, because at one point you will take those SOPs, feed it into AI, and then AI will be able to execute half of the task for you. And what you should be thinking is, how does AI help you do what you're doing faster, cheaper, and better? Because then that means the money will drop to the bottom line. Over the next 3 years, we're seeing businesses that are just going to get turned on their head. We're already seeing it now. The speed at which it's accelerating is extraordinary. So we just need to kind of get in front of this and make sure that we leverage it. Otherwise, our competitors will, and then we'll get significantly left behind.
Thank you. So I'll probably be dropping some of the links to your books and some of the useful resources that you mentioned we should get started with, as well as links to connect with David if you have any questions for him. But David, just want to ask, what would be the ideal kind of people who should speak with you? That means if we have all kinds of businesses out there and business owners.
Yes.
Who are the people that you probably can help the best? And how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah. Best place would be, regardless of where you're at in your journey, just the Systemology book. You head to Amazon, search Systemology. There's the audio version. If you're listening to this, you like audio, so you can grab a copy of that, or the print, or both. That will give you just an understanding of the way that I look at and think about business. Helpful for the smallest of the small, from the solopreneur all the way up to large organizations. As far as like the exact sweet spot, when I kind of set out to do Systemology, it was to help business owners where they've got a little bit of traction. Their business is already kind of working, but the business owner is still heavily involved in different parts of the business. Like they might be wearing multiple hats. Maybe they're doing some sales, maybe they're doing some marketing, maybe they're doing some fulfillment, whatever it is, they're just involved in those day-to-day operations. And that's where I focus. It's how do you get a business owner out of the day-to-day operations and to step back from that? How to go from I don't have any systems to I've now got a base set of systems, minimum viable systems, and I'm starting to build a systems culture. That's the real shift that I help business owners with.
Thank you. I guess it really starts with recognizing that we don't have to do it all ourselves. There's always people who can help us. Thank you very much, David. Before we wrap up the session, any questions or any thoughts that you want to share with the audience about systemizing the business or about entrepreneurship in general?
Well, I would just say my purpose for meeting today really is just to start the fire inside a business owner around systems and processes and make you realize that just because you might not see yourself as a systems person doesn't mean you can't own a systems-driven business. It is very common for founders not to be lovers of documenting process, and it's not a very good use of their time anyway, and that's okay. So as long as we kind of start that, and whether someone follows the Systemology process or figures that out themselves, just understanding the importance of systems. I feel like it's probably one of the least addressed parts of business, yet one of the most fundamental and foundational.
I agree. In fact, I read lots of books, obviously, because of reading graphics, and Systemology was one of those that I found quite empowering. I really like the idea that there are things in the business that can already be captured and you can just build on it step by step. I think that really got me out of the, let me get this perfect first before I document it. I think that was really what was holding me back, and the book really helped. So I strongly recommend that you guys check out Systemology as a starting point, and I'll leave the links to contact David if you have any questions. So once again, thank you, David, for joining us. That was really insightful, and we'll connect again soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.